Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.
Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
Program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
I know you've all missed us, but this is episode 164 of the Endurance for Everyone podcast, and it's a little bit of a different show because we have another podcast host on the line with us, as well as Rob. Rob, say hi.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob. Now I said, Rob, say hi.
Rob, say hi.
You're not following directions.
Hi, John.
And on the other side, we have Pete from Fatman Chronicles. Hi, Pete.
Hey, John, Rob.
Yeah,
glad to be on.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome. So this is like the idea was being, since we've been on a break, as Rob just said, offline.
I think I might have that recorded. Actually,
yeah. we need to snatch that as a snippet. We were on a break.
Could be your ringtone.
It could be my ringtone for you, right? Every time you call me, we're on a break. So we thought coming back that we've been doing a lot of endurance running, or really Rob and Pete have. John hasn't done this yet, not this year, but to talk about some endurance running, some ultra running, some trail racing, and how we go about it. Rob is going to talk about something else at the end. Right, Rob?
Dun, dun, dun.
You see what I did there, though? I fed it.
You set it right up.
And
put it on T.
Right, and now people have to wait till the end to find out what that is.
Or they'll fast forward, listen to it, and then come back.
They don't call me.
With me on the show, it's probably that they will fast forward. So I apologize in advance to you two.
Hey, they don't call me a marketing genius for nothing. Crickets. Where's my cricket?
I was wondering who they was, but yeah, I was just going to let it slide, John.
In my head, there's people calling me a marketing genius. This is why I have so much money. Because of my marketing prowess.
If those people keep talking to you and they get louder, John,
yeah,
therapy.
Oh, wow. They're pretty loud, though. They drown out Queen today while I was running.
There you go.
So, not Kiss?
I don't run to Kiss. I
run to one Kiss song because it was in one of your blog entries. If you know, you might have had more since, but there was one that you put in there. Do you remember what it was?
I Just Wanna?
Nope.
Because that's the one I will use. Which one was it? God of Thunder?
Crazy Nights.
Crazy Nights. God, that was a long time ago, Rob.
I know.
Crazy Nights is a good one.
The only Kiss song in my
and not one of their best, not one of their top, but Crazy Nights is a good running song. Very 80s sounding, right? So
I think it was the part of the blog that was in there because I think I forget, you'll know the line, and somebody else might. This is my people, this is my crowd. I think that's why you put it in.
This is my crowd. Yep. These are my people, and this is my crowd. These are Crazy Nights. It's a very Kiss line there too. They're very much everybody's my people.
I'm more curious why Kiss doesn't make your running playlist.
Because their songs for the most part are not real running songs for me. They have a few, like Crazy Nights. I Just Wanna. I'm trying to think. I Was Made for Loving You, maybe because it's got the beat to it. Not my favorite Kiss song, but Unholy is a good one. I tend to go towards the more heavy rock, Green Day, for running. As long as it's not Journey, I'm fine.
Not a lot of Wham.
Yeah, not a lot. Well, that's
not
funny
lately.
Funny that you should say that, because it's not really a Wham song, but I do have a couple of George Michael songs. You know, does that count as Wham?
Sure, that counts.
Yeah,
close enough.
Yeah, because he had good ones. What was it? Respect Yourself? Is it? No, that was a Madonna. What is the one that's like that though? It's like a dance number, but I liked it a lot. I'm trying now. Now it's going to drive me crazy.
Wake me when you're done, John.
Yeah, I know. See, that's gonna drive me crazy all show now until I figure that out. So yeah, and I like what was that? The one Faith by George Michael was good too. So
Freedom.
Thank you. Freedom.
Did you Google that?
I did not.
Freedom.
I just went through the Rolodex of the 4 George Michael and Wham things that I know, and that was one of them.
Yes, Freedom.
That is 5 more than I know.
Yeah, normally I go toward the heavy metal, but yeah, and a lot of Queen. I do listen to a lot of Queen running. I was just talking about that on Twitter with somebody else. This is basically every Queen song is good. So,
have you seen the Bohemian Rhapsody movie?
I have not seen it. I heard.
Neither have I, but our Uber driver last night told us that it's fantastic.
Yeah, I heard such bad things, and then everybody started seeing it, saying how great it was. So now I got to go see it. I'll see it eventually, but I don't go to a lot of movies like in the theaters.
Us either.
You know, so I wait till they come on, pay-per-view, or they show up on HBO or something. But yeah, I heard it was really good.
I'm so far removed from mainstream anything that like I what?
Where's your closest theater? Like what, 100 miles or so?
No. Technically, and all great stories start that way. We have a little 2-room movie theater right in my town, and it gets first-run movies. So, like, I'm going to say, like, whatever, when the Avengers or it names some of the movies that are like some of the main ones that are out like right now, they get them. Yeah. I just can't. A lot of them don't interest us, or we'd like to support the local theater, so it stays in.
Right.
But that it's always like an adult movie and a kids movie, so that way they can get both. I mean, like it had 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Dark and all that, like when it was like at the main theaters, like, so it plays first run, like what's going. But so yeah, Du Bois about 20 minutes, State College be about 45 minutes to get into like some bigger, like when I say multi-screens, like, 8-10 screens and such. I don't know. I just never been a big movie goer. So
yeah,
I find it really interesting that the 2 mainstream movies you thought of were 50 Shades.
It's telling, right?
No, I've not seen either of those, nor seen them there. But it's because you overhear the conversations with people saying, "Yeah, I remember seeing, I don't know, whatever, Bambi there when I was a kid. I never thought I'd see 50 Shades on, down at the Ritz." It's just one of those like very different things. So.
Speaking of Bambi, have either of you seen the coming attraction to the new Dumbo movie?
Nope.
Have you seen it, Pete?
Yeah.
I will not go see that movie because I'll be a blubbering idiot by the end of it.
Right.
I can't see it. I'm going to have to sit in my house and watch it. Because the original cartoon gets me. I can't go see that. That'll be like
I'm with you. Well, and I might be forced to, depending on, what the little ones want to do.
My God.
Good thing mine doesn't quite speak yet.
Have you seen Dumbo, Rob?
As a kid, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember how sad?
It's been 30 years since I've seen it. Now I remember very little bit about it.
Holy crap! You think Bambi is bad at the beginning? Watch Dumbo.
Oh,
it's like baby of mine. Oh my God. I don't think you got to be a pretty hard-hearted person not to shed a few tears during Dumbo. But just the coming attraction showed me, okay, I can't go see that. There's no way I can see
catch that one on the Netflix.
Yeah. By myself, sitting in the dark, crying like a baby.
Why do I picture just like a tub of ice cream in your lap doing that?
When you say a tub, I'm thinking like a gallon, like one of the big
exactly.
ones.
Just one spoon, John, and a lot of tears.
Chubby hubby. Oh my God, it's gonna make me cry.
Nothing like jumping right into the running talk.
Yeah.
Make them work for it a little bit.
Yeah. We never jump right into anything. Come on.
Right?
Oh
That's
man.
the fun stuff.
Yeah. So you guys have been trail running recently.
A little bit.
I find it. Yeah. So Rob, you went for your first one, and the common denominator in the two of yours is one person, right?
Yeah, Karen.
She's a bad influence.
She's a bad influence.
Sitting here looking at my purple toenail,
Oh yeah.
Of course, it Marine Corps. It was purple-ish going into the trail.
Yeah.
So, wow.
So Rob, you did Fire on the Mountain.
I did.
Yeah, and that was your first trail run.
Yeah, it was my first trail race.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I've done some running, a little bit around home before that, but yes, that was my first trail run.
And
first ultra, first a lot of things. So it was
oh, that's right. That's right. It was an ultra as well. That's right. We got to say that. And Pete, was that your first trail race? Pete, was that your first trail? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mine was not an ultra.
Yours was a half marathon, though, right?
It was a half marathon, which was technically a little even short of that, which I hear is unusual for trail runs, that they're usually longer than whatever they say, typically. But this one was shorter.
And have you ever done trail running before, Pete?
A little bit around here. There's not a ton of trails. There's more I think the substance is like crushed limestone in this area. There's a lot of that. There's a little bit of actual trails over in a town called Palos Hills, Palos Heights.
Yeah.
And I've done a little bit over there, but not a lot. But spoiler alert, it's going to happen more often. I really enjoy it.
And that's kind of what I want to get to is like, what did you've heard me talk about it, you've heard Megan on here talking, Karen talking about it, like the whole atmosphere, the whole vibe. I guess I can ask both of you that. It's like, do you agree with what we were saying, and do you feel like it's going to be a new thing for you guys?
You want to take it first, Pete?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because I've heard a lot about this camaraderie on the trail, how it's so much different than road racing, and I'm still fairly new into running. I mean, I tried and failed to become a runner for 15 years, and it just took about a year and a half ago where I got really consistent. And the difference between trail and road to me really was negligible in terms of people. And I think what I took away from what most people were talking about is that a lot of people concentrate so much more on speed when it comes to road racing versus the experience when it comes to trail racing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I have to say that that's probably true. And I find that a little bit even in myself, that if I'm on the road, I try to go as fast as possible. And on the trail, I really didn't care. I mean, it took me 3 hours and 24 or 25 minutes, whatever it was, 29 minutes to get that half marathon done. And I didn't give a rip. I mean, it just didn't matter to me. And I took time to help some people on the trail. Karen was out there helping me. And so I thought the least I could do was pay that forward a little bit when it got a little dicey on the trail, and some ladies needed a hand to get down a little it was kind of a drop off, and it was so muddy and slick. So we did that. But for me, that's not much different than what I see on the road, but I'm running more back of the pack.
Yeah.
The very end of the middle of the pack now, maybe, but it's mostly back of the pack. And everybody's pretty friendly back there. Everybody talks and helps each other. So regardless of what I've heard, I think it was pretty similar for me.
Yeah, and we've talked about that when Andrew was back on. There's a difference between road runners that are in the front that are really trying to win and the rest of everybody in the back. That in the back, you do have a lot more of that. Where I've noticed, and I've talked about it before on a few of my trail races, was that you don't find in road races and in triathlons, the people in first, second, third place will stop too to help people. And you do find that in trail races. And that was a big difference for me. Like I talk about the very first one I ever did at Kroomzoom. The guy, I didn't even know it, but the guy that stopped and helped me at the aid station ended up winning the 100-mile race. So, and you don't find a lot of triathletes that are going to stop. The person leading the pack is going to stop and help somebody.
Right.
You don't find that. And so it's almost like a trail race to me, or an ultra runner atmosphere to me, is that everybody has that back of pack mentality for the most part. everybody's there to help everybody. Everybody there wants everybody to have a good time and to enjoy the experience. I had a coffee with Chris Valente today. He happens to be in town, and we were kind of talking about that. He was talking about how, and he didn't want to sound like an elitist. He goes, I don't want to sound like an elitist, but the term ultra runner is really a misnomer because very few ultra runners run the whole time. You know,
I was going to say, before we get too far away from it, I wanted to hear what Chris had to say. And from my, and I can go talk for an hour, but anyway, so from my experience, I think, and for clarification right here, if you're talking, I'm going to say ultras, I've only done one, I can only account to that, or I should even just say trail runners. Yeah. I think we need to take back of out of the statement you're making and just call it the pack. Yeah. There was a very much, and I'll go, talk more later if you want me to on it, but I felt like, and I can talk about a 5K, I can talk about the Marine Corps Marathon, and then I could talk about running this with Karen, and it was a pack mentality, and I thought it was going to be that way from everything I've heard about this culture, about these people, and Fire in the Mountain was just, for me at least, very a very good example of that, to the point where Ryan, who went down with us, he went out ahead of us. Like, if you heard on the recap, he went into the halfway point, I don't know, 20 minutes ahead of us, half hour ahead of us, and so he knew nobody other than myself and Karen from 5 minutes the night before. I was sticking with Karen when we were out there. He goes out ahead of us, and hearing him recap his race later, he had picked up what he called his caravan. They had 8 or 10 of them that they didn't know each other at all, but they were kind of about the same pace. So they kind of just stuck together, and they stuck together for a good long while. And that's when we caught up with them, they were down to about maybe 6. And that's the same deal. Is obviously we caught them. And so we were now running a little faster on the way back. But we stuck with them for, several miles, kind of like I don't want to say leapfrog. We kind of like, they'd go a little faster on an uphill or a flat. We'd go a little faster on the downhill. But then eventually our pacing, we stood kind of all stuck together. And then we, went our separate ways after like a half hour, 45 minutes, you know what I mean? And it was just, as soon as you got in with a new group, it was, hey, this is Karen, I'm Rob, here's this. And you start talking to somebody else, and then you get back into your own little group. But it seemed like very much a group mentality for the entire thing. We're all in this together for this shared experience. Yeah, I don't know.
Right, and that's exactly everyone that I've run, that's what it's like. Even when I'm out there training in a trail and you run into people, they're the same way. And I guess that's what kind of draws us to it more so than I don't know. It's kind of a hard thing. And I was talking to Chris. We were talking about this today. Is that at some point you get to a point where you don't really care about winning so much anymore. You're out there for the experience. You're out there to have fun, and so much emphasis all the time on winning can take the fun out of it. Anything, and going back into trail running and just running. He was telling me he's like mapping a course from God, what was it, Portland to somewhere. It's like 150 miles, and he was like talking about running this from Portland to another city. And it was like he's just going to do it by himself because he just wants to go out there and have fun. He's trying to regain that. You've heard him talk about that recently, that he's trying to regain the fun of it, and just to go out there alone and just to run.
Yeah.
But his point being about the running is that very few people that do 100-mile runs or 200-mile runs or 300-mile runs run the whole time. There's very few that can do that. So ultra runner is almost a misnomer to him because nobody runs that.
Well, I mean, I think that comes back to if you do like Galloway, right, where you're doing a run walk. Are you a runner or are you not a runner? I say you're a runner. I mean,
we discussed that. I mean, that's why he said he's trying not to sound elitist by saying that, because he knows that there's people out there, marathoners, that say, well, if you don't run the whole marathon, you didn't really run the marathon, you finished it. Things like that, and we don't feel that way. We feel like if you complete the race in the time allotted, you did it. You did it just as much as anybody else.
Right. Well, and I think it's interesting too. To the I don't know much about the trail and ultra community other than what I listen to on podcasts, right?
Right.
And I do listen to a lot of them. So I wonder if the very, very front in a race would be the same, like if they were elite. So like a Jim Walmsley, like is he gonna really stop and help somebody, or is he gonna just chug past you trying to get that record? You know, I would hope that if you're in pain or hurt, that regardless of who you are, road, trail, anywhere in the world, that somebody would stop and try to help. And on a trail, that could be real, because that's, I think, what I really took out of it was I didn't care about speed going into that trail race, and I'm glad I didn't, because it was already a technical course, not hugely technical from what I understand, but for me as a first one, it was definitely technical. A lot of single track and getting downhill and rocks and roots and everything, and fallen leaves and mud, but it was so muddy that it was treacherous. So I had no choice but to slow down and really enjoy the experience. That doesn't mean it wasn't difficult, even going at that pace, because the next day, let me tell you, walking downstairs was no picnic. But I wasn't destroyed by it. And so from that perspective, I think, you know, the trail running appeals to me because I can get my mind off speed. Although with my first marathon, I'm not really thinking about speed either. I just want to be in good enough shape to come out of it feeling good and have fun.
And able to walk.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Oh, that's overrated.
Well, I mean, I think I told the story on, you know, FMC before that, you know, after my first half marathon, I literally couldn't walk. I got done and we had to find a pedicab to take us somewhere, because I literally couldn't walk.
Well, lucky you that you had that opportunity, because after my first one, I hobbled to a cab. We were waiting for the bus, and I couldn't even wait for the bus. I said, well, we got to get out of here because I can't stand up anymore. And I was luckily I had taken like a four days off after that, because I would not have been able to work.
Right.
I could not walk. And, you know, and that has a lot to do. And I was trained for that one. So, I mean, I did a good job. But as soon as I stopped, you know, I got through. My feet were hurting, you know, the normal stuff. But as soon as I sat down and then tried to get up, I was done. And I never felt anything like that. What I find as a big difference between, you know, doing 26.2 on a road versus, you know, 15-20 in a trail is that I don't feel like that afterwards.
Yeah, the surface is a lot more forgiving, obviously. I mean, it's not concrete. So even crushed limestone is, when I couldn't get on those trails, I like to, because it just gives my legs a break. And I just don't feel as beat up. I mean, I'll talk about this on our next episode a little bit, but I did my first 14 miler yesterday, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
I felt just beat up, and I think a lot of it had to do with just I've done so many miles on the road in a row, because the trails just have been bad with precipitation, and you know, snow is just not good for those crushed limestone trails. Like, it's super slick. Yeah. So I haven't been out on them. And I think I just beat myself up. And the last 5 miles of that, well, I'm going to call it a run after hearing what Chris said earlier. I don't think he would have, because I had to walk quite a bit of it at times. But I mean, it was slow. I mean, my overall pace was fine, but it hurt. And I think it was a lot of the just running on asphalt.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I'm training for Disney right now. And so at all of my training runs, majority of them have been on roads, and they kill me. You know, so anytime that I can, even if I got to put a lot of miles in, I'll head to the trail instead. Now, we don't have the snow down here, obviously, but you know, I don't have to deal with that. So
I'll mail you some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Hey, Rob, do you hit the rail trail at times? Do you do that for long runs too, or are those all road miles?
It varies. And like, I should say that today, and I'll just go through 3 different examples, and when I say I'm going to say I'm the oddball on this. I get what both of you guys are saying. I've been where both of you guys are, but it's sitting here. It's weird. Like you guys are talking about your first half marathon and how you're crushed. And I remember the same thing. Like after my first true half marathon was up in Erie. It was Prescott. It was paved, etc. I was still like 250, 260 at that point. I was, like you're saying, devastated for the day. Went back to my friend's house, laid there for like 4 hours before leaving. I don't even know if I left or spent the night, and then we came home the next day. But what's funny you're asking that is because I ran 13.3 today as a training run, and it was, when I say rail trails, on the Montour Trail, we were down around Pittsburgh. I went with my brother-in-law. I say went with him. I did 5 and then met up with him, and we did another 8 together. And half of it was a paved path. The path was paved, and half of it was crushed limestone, like pretty well packed down. So when you're asking what I'm doing my long runs, I'm going to have to be a little bit specific. When I was going through the Hansen plan, like previously, it would be mostly run, like if it was just running through the week and then longer on the weekend, it was all of those miles through the week were on the pavement, and then on the weekend I was doing the rail trail, like you're saying, when I was bigger, when I was heavier, to help alleviate some of that pain. But with this, following like the Hansen plan, nearing the last 4 weeks of that plan, Tuesday was 11, 12 miles. Thursday was 11, 12 miles. And then you'd go into the weekend, your long run. I mean, you may have done, 6, 10, 10 or 8, 8, 8, 16 or something like that. Okay. So those long runs weren't that much longer than whenever I was, what I was doing on Tuesday, Thursday, I should say. And the Tuesday, Thursday runs were all, or like 99% of them were road. So you're talking 20, 25 miles through the week minimum, hard intervals. Pete, I know you said you did intervals recently. I'm not trying to do speed intervals on the crushed limestone, because you can't, it's just to me not completely safe. You know what I mean? You got to keep a strong footing. So those miles for me were much harder than, and put much more of a strain on my body, my knees and all that. The long run for what I've been doing this year, different than what I've been doing in years past. Even it was just going out for easy cruising miles. So I mean, if it was on the rail trail, I had the little guy in the stroller with me, and I would even hit the rail trail, deviate onto a paved road for like 2 or 3 miles, then a dirt road, like just to mix it up to be different. But those long run miles were done at a much lesser intensity. So I'd come off of those long runs, you're tired, but it's just that fatigued from being out there for longer. The Tuesday, Thursday runs literally left me, I don't want to say in pain, but those were the ones that were like completely like very sore muscles. Like you guys are talking about, hard to go up and down steps. Like I didn't have that problem after my long runs. It was more after the speed and the interval and the tempo and so forth.
Well, that makes sense, because that's going to put more on your quads anyway.
Yeah.
So that's where you're going to feel it.
And that's where when I say it's much different, that's where 8-10 years ago, going through all of this, it's, being 10 years in, you go back even 2 years ago though. Yeah. The long runs were more taxing, but yeah, it's because I wasn't pushing to my capacity with any of the tempo or the intervals as well. If you're doing that, it makes the other stuff, I don't want to say easy, but easier by comparison. So and that, going back to as well, a big portion I want to say is the shoes. Like I said, I put on in the group, I think a few months ago, like I had all my shoes lined up because I was getting them all cleaned up and such. I have shoes that I wear for a 3-4 miler. I have shoes that I wear for like 8 to 10 milers, and anymore, like I do have 2 pair of ultras and my pair of Brooks that I wore at Pittsburgh. I'll wear those for my longer runs on the road, and they are much more cushioned of a shoe than I've ever worn in the past. But on those, when it could be, that's why it hurt. When I say hurt, felt differently on Tuesday, Thursday. When I was going out for intervals, that's where I was wearing my, Newtons, much less cushioning, much more, and it's just giving myself that variety. But also, I go out on the trails. I have my trail shoes are ultras now as well, so they're much more cushioned than the Sauconys that I was running in 2 years ago as well. So it's just one of those. I'm going out there for the fun, to have fun. I want to be comfortable.
Yeah,
That's
right.
a good. Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, exactly. I think that's what you have to get to. And I was going to say that even with mine, with these longer training runs coming, getting ready for Disney, I've actually gone back to my Hokas because they're the only things that I can get through a longer run in and not my feet killing me by the end of it.
And not be wiped out for 4 days.
Right. And that's always been my argument against really long training runs is that for somebody built like I am, you give me a training run for 20 miles, I'm down for 4 days. So I'm missing other training now. But if you give me a training run of 16, I can do that and still take a rest day and still do training.
Right.
So there's this little sweet spot of where training needs to stop. So even with doing it with team and training, and they have their own plan set, and the majority of these people are little rubber people, they kind of plan towards that. And when it gets to that level, I stop training with them and I start doing my own thing, it's got to that point now. So when they drop back to 12 miles for an off week, I'll go run with them. But if they're at 18 and 20, I'm not running with them because I'm not going to do that because I know what it's going to do to me. So
Have you ever split any of those long runs? Have you tried that strategy?
Yeah. And actually Megan told me to do that at one point too, that I've actually split it morning and night sometimes if I've had like even back when I started doing really longer miles like 5-6 years ago and I had a 16-mile run and I couldn't do it, I would do 10 in the morning and 6 at night, things like that. And to try to get the miles in the same day without as much of a time between as I could possibly not do. Right
did it
now,
help?
Yeah, I think it did. It got me through. So it was a mistake I did in 15 that I didn't do that, and I didn't make it through that marathon. I'm probably going to do that again this time. When we get to those levels, I'll go do a 13 or 14, and then if it's a 20-mile weekend, I'll do 6 the next day or 6 later. Things like that.
Right.
So I'll get the mileage in, but I'll split it up.
Sure.
And I think that works for me. But
yeah, I mean, I think that's important. You got to figure out what works for you. I've seen that strategy more and more from being in the sub 30 club, just watching different people's strategies and different coaches, like what they recommend to their athletes and stuff, which is interesting. What I hadn't thought about was shoes, and you bringing that up, Rob. That's that could be maybe part of what was happening for me yesterday because it was snowing when I ran. And again, we understand that's not happening in Florida.
that's crazy to me that it's snowing already for you guys.
Yeah,
We got
Yeah,
a
I
foot.
mean,
I had to shovel it on Thursday.
We had a cold front on Wednesday. It got down to 50.
oh, jeez.
And that was the low. I know. See, we do this every year, right? We just talk about this every year. But it's just like, God, it's not. It's so still. I'm sweating right now talking because I haven't turned on the air conditioner, so I'm sitting in my living room sweating.
Oh man.
It's like, and I know you guys aren't sweating.
No, not at all. But so, I mean, I love that weather. Like, I didn't mind running in the snow at all. But because it was snowing, and I wanted to make sure that my footing was okay because it was like right at that freezing temperature, which is honestly kind of the worst in many ways. I'd rather it be either colder or warmer. But when you're right at that, you just never know when you're going to hit a patch of what we call black ice. Where it just looks like the pavement is fine. And part of the way that I mitigate that also for the cold is I bought some Brooks Gore-Tex shoes, which I used on the trail run with Karen, and they were great.
So it has like the inner sock in it? Is that what it does? Or
it has a Gore-Tex lining to it.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
It's
and
like an inner sock, yeah.
Yeah. So it was great because I was more sure of the grip on the ground. Like they're well designed shoes. But I had, it was my first time ever going more than 13 miles. Well, a half marathon, so just over 13.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was really feeling beat up by the end, and I wonder if the shoes didn't have something to do with it. I've been trying new shoes, so I have 3 pairs. I have never rotated shoes before, but I am now. I'm trying it, and I've got those Brooks Ghost Gore-Tex GTX, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And then I've got a pair of the new Brooks Ricochet, And that I bought because they do have a little bit more cushion to them than what I was running in that I really was liking, which was the New Balance 890 V6.
Mm.
And those had less cushion, but I loved the way they felt. Like it was the first pair of shoes I've had where I didn't feel like I was wearing any. And I really liked that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but with shoes with me is for trails, I have Solomons. And the reason I do use Solomons is because I feel like it's very important for me to feel like my foot's not going to roll on me. So it's almost like the pair that I use a lot. I don't use the X Cross a lot because those are made for speed, and I do feel like my ankles kind of roll, and that scares me. So, but the pair I do, the X Pros that I wear, and I've been wearing them since I bought them for Infinitus and 2 years ago, still wearing them. They just feel like my foot's locked in, and it's not going to go anywhere. I feel safe in them. They are heavy though. So, but I'd rather feel safe than light at this. There's only so light I'm going to be.
Right.
As light as I want to be, it's still 270 pounds going through that trail. So, yeah.
Yeah. A few ounces on a shoe won't matter.
Yeah, exactly. That's we used to joke about that in triathlon is like, do I really care about how heavy that brake lever is?
Right.
Come on. I don't care. As long as it works, I don't care.
I keep watching people buy the Nike Vaporfly, 4%, and I'm just like, gosh, I don't even know, like for somebody at my speed, I don't even, the 4% is obviously a greater in terms of time because there's just more time there, but I can't imagine it's going to help me. All I could see it doing is I could see myself getting injured. Yeah,
exactly. So I'd rather, it's not going to matter one way or the other. What's going to add like a few seconds to my pace, What's the difference between a 17 and a 17:02?
Right.
It's not going to matter. So you get to the point, as Rob was saying, you get to the point that you want to find something that's comfortable, even with the pack, if you're wearing a vest, anything, I don't like wearing things around my waist, so I got to find a vest, but no vest is really made for a guy like I am. So, you have to find the biggest one you can deal with. And hopefully it works,
You just get two mediums or two larges and sew them together.
Sew them together.
Why are you giving John craft projects?
Damn, man.
He's looking for a new hobby.
Yeah, that's only like a 6XL. Yeah, I can handle it. I'm not that big. Come on.
Oh, funny.
But so what's on the horizon? So you got more trail runs coming, Pete?
I don't right now.
Infinitus, come on.
Yeah, right. So here's what's coming up. I've got my first marathon in March 3rd in Newport News, Virginia. After that, I want to really. What's that?
I used to live in that region.
Oh, nice.
Chesapeake.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that race is, it says pancake flat, so
yeah,
that was a big deal for me. And then from there, I do want to get on the trails after that. I think that's going to really be where I'm going to live. And it got me really thinking, well, I've been thinking about ultra for a long time. Even I thought about skipping the marathon distance, honestly. Yeah. Eventually I settled on doing one just because I think I want to do it for myself. I don't know if I want to call it bucket list. I guess it kind of is. I've been a fan of marathon running for a long time. My brother is a heck of a marathoner and has done, I don't know, 25, 30, something, somewhere in there of them. And I just really admire when people finish it. I had good friends and teammates finish the Philly marathon today and both get PRs. So, you get.
No, I was going to say, I mean, it's like people finishing marathons in under the time that I would finish a half, like Rob. For example.
Right.
He finished that marathon. I can't do a half marathon on that. So it's very impressive to me as well that anybody that can run like that. Christine Cox, another one.
Yeah.
She flies.
Yep.
She did a half marathon today. I think her pace was under 9.
Wow.
So that's just a full out sprint to me. So it always impresses me anybody that can run like that for that length of time. always impresses me, and especially with Rob. I know you're right there, Rob. I don't mean to speak about you like you're not there, but someone who used to be heavy and can do that now, oh, that's impressive to me. Now he does have 22 years on me, so there's a little bit of a difference here, but.
And the other part there behind that too, though, is you go back to when I say early season, you go back to my early running career. It was I ran for a bunch of years, not able to get anywhere, even when I say close to a 2-hour, half marathon. And then it was like 6 years in or whatnot. I don't know, it was a couple of years ago now at this point. Like I ran New York and I was, half, and I was just freezing. I had done some training, I guess, and I suddenly went from like a 202 half to like a 146. I'm like, what? And I have no idea. Like, what happened? That was the fluke, and I couldn't get back there for a while. But like I said, I went out for an easy. When I say easy, quote flat, I was on the rail trail. But hey, I did. And I looked at my thing. I'm sorry, my thing shows 13.18. I know it was a little longer, but whatever. So 13.18. I kept a 903 pace, and I had 335 feet of elevation. And that's just a quote easy flat out, just not pushing it, BSing and having ran half of it and then ran the other half just talking. And I took one little walk break in the middle because I had a like a 30-second or minute because I had like a cramp. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't pushing anything. So, but that's a culmination of a decade of doing it, but really a good solid year and a half of consistency. And that's what it's like you said. I am. I've got a few less years than you on it, but it's like I said, the hardest and the weirdest thing in that, I guess, when I say getting faster at some of the stuff. I mean, like go back and look at my marathon. So yeah, you're talking about Chicago that I just recently got a much better time than I ever have. But you go back, I've had 5.5 hour finish times in the marathon as well. Feeling like I was going to die. So I'm looking at just by comparison of myself from my first marathon to my 8th marathon or 7th marathon, it makes just a much bigger difference. Just having that being lighter helps, but also consistency.
Well, I was going to say being lighter is part of it too, and I think I posted it in the group, but I don't know if you guys read Stephen King, but the book he just had come out on Halloween, he talks about in the book, I won't give the book away in case you want to read it, but in the book he talks about the main character in the book is losing weight, but he's not losing what he looks like. So it'd be like me looking like I do now, but weighing like 150 pounds when I step on the scale. So when he talks about the race, he makes a bet with this woman that he can beat her in this race, and this woman has finished 4th in the New York City Marathon. So she's running a 12K, and he makes a statement. He makes a statement in the book that I've said myself is like he's got the muscles of a 240-pound man on a 180-pound weight. So he's flying.
Mm-hmm.
So and I've said that too. It's like, how much faster would I be if I was 60 pounds lighter? If I had kept the same strength I have now, and I do think weight makes a big difference. It makes a big difference on how fast you can go. It makes a big difference on how you recover. Well,
and the conventional wisdom on that is it's 2 seconds per pound per mile. So if you're 60 pounds, that's literally 2 minutes per mile less. So I mean, over the course of a marathon, think about that, right? Like that is significant, so. Right?
Can I interject one thing I thought earlier, and it's hard, but it's weird, but and I'll say it this way too. This is the first year I've ever really done speed or interval work, and I've dabbled a little bit here or there, maybe once every 3 weeks previously. Nothing serious or structured I actually did the work. I didn't just phone it in as I was running it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it makes a substantial difference in when I say what you're able to do, but also your recovery. Coming out of Chicago, I felt one way, and I was running myself and running consistent. I don't want to say all out. Like I had more speed. I could have gone faster at points, but if you go faster, then you're going to lose it somewhere else, right? So I kept something like an 8. I during my speed intervals, I can do a 7 something, but I wasn't doing 7 somethings in the race. Okay. I kept that pace. When I went to Marine Corps, then I was able to, I came out of that race feeling just so much better. And it was only a 2 minute a mile difference slower that, and I came out of it just, I don't want to say feeling refreshed, but a week later went and did, 32.8 miles or whatever, just under 33 miles in the woods. Recovery time was so much quicker. And I have to attribute all of that to having the capacity to go faster and then running easier at an easier pace, whatever that is. And in speed work, I've never been a believer in it as much as I have this year.
Two quick things there, Rob. One, I think that the recovery also has something to do with the fact that, we've cut sugar and grains out of the diet and the inflammation isn't there. And I do think recovery is much easier when you're eating like that, overall. Not taking away all the other work. That's definitely a part of the equation, but I think it all fits together. The other piece of that is I think what you're talking about with speed, I can concur with 100% because I've never done it. And now that I've been doing speed work and tempo work consistently since the beginning of this year, I've improved significantly. So for some perspective, when I talk about this 14-mile run being difficult, if I break it out, the 13.1 miles, so the half marathon, would have been before this year. So coming into this year, my PR for the half marathon was from many, many, many eons ago, at 2 hours and 42 minutes. And that's about what I ran for the half marathon in my training run this time, where it was difficult. So in other words, now when I have a really crappy run, I'm running at what my PR pace was coming into the year. That's how much I've improved with consistency, some lost weight, speed work, some hill work, a lot of tempo work, just changing up the routine. And, John, you can chime in here because as a coach, I'm sure you see this kind of progress when you're prescribing different runs to your athletes or cycling or swimming or however. I mean, I don't know how that works as well, but I know there are different paces that you can go at. And when you vary them, I mean, it's unbelievable. And I guess that's the thing. It's really interesting to me because the three of us are in like three different areas of running in terms of speed and where we're at. I consider what, Rob's doing really, really fast. And I say that, and I know my brother runs a sub 3 hour marathon.
Faster than that.
So it's like,
much faster than me.
That just gets to insanity, to me.
Right.
And I know that I'm probably never going to get to that kind of pace. However, I do know that I've got a lot more improvement ahead. So anyway, John, I'd love to hear your perspective on that. I'm from a coach,
Yeah, just to go to
May
that
I say
point.
one last thing with that?
Go ahead.
I didn't want to, sorry, John, step on you. I was saying all that with speed work, Pete. But the other part too, though, and I guess it's because, and if you've listened to, Vinny Tortorich is always about zone two, and that recently, Maffetone was on the Marathon Training Academy podcast, and I do believe there's a lot that can go with that. Like if you don't. When I say you got to do one of two things, I guess, if you're not going to do the speed, you should be doing, I guess, and forgive me, I don't want to prescribe or tell people what to do, but another part of it was I did a lot more volume, and a lot of that volume, though, was the zone 2. And that's something John would have seen, and we went through the year. My zone 2 has changed dramatically. So it does all, like being lighter, being less inflamed, eating differently, doing the speed work, but also then, having 3 or 4 days a week, just going out and keeping it in zone 2. Just the difference when I gave the stats there between what I did in Pittsburgh and what I did in Chicago, like there was so much more of a percentage that was just in that zone 2. And part of it, a big part was just out there doing the easy runs in the correct zone. But those were easy runs immediately following the hard work. I think it all works together. The more you can do, the better. But ultimately, if you can get out there and do any of it. Stick with one. Just don't get stuck in the middle gray zone where you don't want to be out there at a 4 mile zone, 3 or 4. Go slower, go into a zone 2, and then work on that aerobic, or go faster and go anaerobic, if I'm using the terms correctly there. John, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
And get those intervals in. You got to go one way or the other. You don't want to just get stuck in the middle.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. Actually, that's perfect. It's there used to be, it still is, but there was a mantra that my coaches playing football would always say, and I know they still say it, is that you play like you practice. And if you can't. I think we've all, as a coach, I mean, I'm evolving all the time. Now, I've learned as much from Rob as anybody, because he does the plan, and I can see what's happening. So I can use that with other people now. He was kind of like a guinea pig in a lot of ways sometimes, trying to figure it out. But if all you do,
I don't know what sound a guinea pig makes, or I'd make it for you.
Yeah, what does it make? Tick, 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 something like, I don't know. I'll find a guinea pig sound. There you go. Perfect. I just think that I think we, as maybe, I don't want to say heavier, because it's for everybody, but you get stuck into this rut that you're just doing zone 2 runs. Well, your race is going to be that too. Then you're not going to be able to push anything on your race if all you're doing is zone 2 runs in training. So you have to have. That's why the Hanson was so good, and I liked it. To prescribe it, not to do it, but that it's snuck in intervals. So right now I have a client she's got 3 races ahead of her, and she's got 3 different goals. So she's got a 5K coming up in like 17 weeks. Then she's got a half, then she's got a full, and there's different goals for each one. For that 5K, she's shooting for a sub 30. So we're training her to that point to a sub 30, and then we switch it up. And then we say, okay, we got you to a sub 30. Now let's get it to a personal record for your 10K or your half or what, So does that answer the question? I don't know. I've lost my train of thought now.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I mean, I just did something similar, right? Mm-hmm. Got my first sub 30, although I did it kind of reversed. I got my PR back in April for the half, but I mean, I took 20 minutes off, 21 minutes off. Yeah. And it's just consistent hard work. And I agree. You got to get the miles in, and you can't do those at intensity. And I mean, you talked about this before too with Chris, you mentioned Christine earlier, and John, I remember you talking with her because you do kind of the same run all the time. And then you helped her kind of switch it up, and then she went out there and crushed the race. So
yeah, and we did that a little bit this time, not as much because she only contacted me with maybe a week or 2 left. But she'll be the first one to tell you, I don't think I'm speaking out of school, is that she does this 8 to 10 mile run every day. But then that's what she does. So she's always around the same thing. So we needed to, and not this race, but the race before, what we did was she would run as fast as, like a sprint, 2 miles to the pool, do her swim workout, and then sprint home. And she would do that for the last 2 weeks leading up to her race, and it worked. She got faster. Christine's a little thing. She's,
I know it always cracks me up when she wears Fatman Chronicles gear, because that's pretty damn funny.
It's funny. Well, she used to sport a lot of fat, slow triathlete gear too.
I know, that's great, isn't it?
It's funny. But what I want to say, you touched on it, and I meant to touch on that too, is that where Rob is really good and where Stephanie Walsh is really good is that they're consistent. They always do the plan. Like, no matter what, Rob is going to, Rob is scheduled for a 12-mile run on Tuesday, he's going to do a 12-mile run. Stephanie's the same way. And that's where it's good that I can tell what works and what doesn't that way. Because everybody's different, and you might have to change it up a little bit. But I'm not saying everybody else doesn't, but they were very good at it. And right. Stephanie's still going. She's doing it still. So we got her talked into Infinitus. So
beautiful. Well, I mean, that kind of gets us back to, I reached out to you guys, right? Because I'm super curious as to the thought process behind going for ultra marathons, right? You know, so to finish up, like I'm thinking about doing my first ultra after my marathon. Well, I know I'm going to do one. It's just a matter of what do I do? How long should I be looking at? The type of race, you know, I think I've got one, you know, picked out. But what kind of drew you guys to make that step up in length, and just in terms of what was the thought process behind like which? Well, Rob, I know yours because it was, you know, you chronicled it, but you know, John, what you know, kind of what made you step into that?
It was purely a, you know, I come to things in weird ways. I come to decisions in weird ways. I jump around on distances. I think I'm in a perpetual search for that one distance that is my distance, that is my thing, that I can do well in, maybe not win, but that I enjoy doing, and that I can be somewhat successful in. So I think I put a, you know, a poll out there on the page that said, like, if you could only do one distance for the rest of your running life, what would it be? You couldn't do anything else. What would it be? You know, 10K, 5K, 1 mile, you know, half marathon, 100 miles, whatever. You know, and I think my sweet spot's a 10K, but it's a 10K trail race. So I think when I was looking at something, I'm trying to find, Andrew used to say it, I know I'm going all over the place here. Andrew used to say you're trying to find your tribe. And I'm trying to find, I thought triathlons was my tribe. I still enjoy triathlons, but they're not really my people, I guess is no way to say it. Does that make sense?
Sure.
People that are outdoors,
Gotcha.
that like the outdoors, that like to be on trails, that like to be in the woods. That's more like my people. So I need to find, that's what kind of drew me to it. Megan talked to me a lot about it before because she was my coach at that time. So she talked to me a lot about it. And, you know, my first attempts at it were not small attempts. My first attempt was a 15-miler, 25K, which I finished, but it was so, what really kept me with it was that the way I felt afterwards was so much better than the way I felt after any other thing I've ever done. Just as I felt about myself and as I felt physically. So that's what kind of drove me to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So then going longer than that.
Yeah.
Was that just for you a natural progression? Did you feel like you had to do it?
No, I don't feel like I have to do it. I feel like I get morbid sometimes. And I think, you know, I'm 55 years old. And I spoke a little bit with Chris about it today, is like, you know, at the age of 55, I'm only going to get so much faster. There's very little reason to believe that I'm going to ever run an 8-minute mile before I'm gone, you know? So I need to find something that I'm okay with. And, you know, could I get to maybe to a 10 or 11? Probably, you know, as long as I lose the weight. But, you know, as you get older, it's going to be harder and harder to regain that, you know? And I went a lot of years being very bad to myself. And you guys, I mean, Pete, you're older than Rob, but, you know, Rob's young, you know, so luckily he caught it early, and hopefully he stays on it, you know, because you don't want to end up like this at 55.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm closer to your age than I am to Rob's. So.
Yeah, but you don't want to be like this at 55. You don't want to be trying to regain something.
I like the millennial of this group.
Yeah.
Close.
Well, I'm very millennial in the way I think, believe it or not. But you know, I and that's why I kind of do the blog and I kind of do the podcast, is I do it for a lot of reasons, but a big reason is that I want to speak to people who are not only my weight, but people my age or going to be my age. You need to fix it now. Fix it when you're 30. Don't wait till you're 50.
Right.
Don't wait till you're 40, you know, because the older you get, the harder it's going to be. And, you know, your body's getting older. There's no way that I can expect to recover from a 100-mile race like I would have at 25. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
you know, John, I get what everything you're saying there, and I agree with it. The only thing is, I'm going to interject two random things, and then I'm going to kind of answer Pete's question, and then I got questions for Pete with that as a follow-up, kind of transition and turn it around here. And that is, I had the best, I think, Pete, I think I actually texted it to you. John, I don't know if I sent it to you. And that was, a lot of people on Facebook nowadays are putting NSV. It took me a little bit to figure out non-scale victory, right? And I said, I had the greatest non-scale victory ever. And that was, somebody confused me for to being my own son. And I'm like, and how that plays out is I'm sitting with these clients for a half hour talking with them, and then they're like, "Oh, and are you Rob's son?" And I said, "No, I am Rob." And they're like, "Are you what?" And because when I met with them 10 years ago, I was much heavier. So my question is, how old did I look when I was that much heavier that now I'm 10 years older and they thought I was my own son? So, and then I guess that's just aesthetics, right? But that's also what you're doing to your insides and life. And like I said, it's the answers I'm giving now for everything are much different 10 years into doing this. And like I said, 2 years into doing some of this stuff consistently. And that, Pete, you had said, hey, how did I figure it out? I had the on-air crisis, if you will, or I said, what I shared. And that basically was, I came out of, or going into Pittsburgh and came out of Pittsburgh thinking like, I'm never going to qualify for Boston. I'm not going to be that quick. And I'm in that complete perfect Jan Brady, I'm not the 6-hour marathoner anymore. I'm not 260 pounds. I'm your average build, if you will. I'm your average speed, and I'm not going to knock 25% off my marathon time. So the idea was, if I can't get, another, knock a 25% off, or I don't know how many third, 1/3, 2/3, whatever, faster, do I just go longer? If I can do this speed, or instead of doing 8-minute or 9-minute miles, do it at a 9-minute or a 10-minute mile, can I go longer? How much longer can I go? Are 50, is a 50 miler the next logical step, and then 100K and then 100 miler? I don't know. That's what we'll get into in a few minutes here, family obligations and work and all that stuff are, I'm getting into that sweet spot of life where that is, a lot of that stuff has taken priority and precedence, where it hasn't, when I was 27, and I didn't have to worry about that. But, that's why I wanted to try longer. I wanted to try the trails, and because it just seemed like a much more like laid back vibe, and I really wanted to try that. And like John, you had said, I thought triathlon are my people, and I still love triathlon, and because I can still kind of compete there. But if you said, hey, what's the one thing, you said one distance or one whatever you can do forever, for me, I want to say it's a half marathon because I can kind of do it in under 2 hours now. But for me, it's about a 2-hour workout. Whether I'm out riding my bike for 2 hours, whether I'm out running for 2 hours, or whether it's a triathlon that I can, I can't quite get an Olympic done in under 2, but I can do the sprint and then still stand around and, hang out with people. And it's a nice sweet spot of length of time in that for me. And so whatever fits in that mark is where I'm going to be with it. And that's, I said, Pete, I wanted to turn. Thank you. I wanted to kind of turn this around, Pete, and because you had, I was texting you and you had said you were looking at these races, and that's why I said we need to talk. We need to get this recorded and talk this stuff through, because in one vein, I don't want to say, I want to say, no, Pete, I don't think you could or should do this. And then in the next vein, when you're saying you can't do it, I want to tell you you can. And that is, I think anyone out there, almost anyone out there can go out and do a 50K, maybe even a 50 mile. I haven't done one of those with enough training, but also if you get the right run walk ratio. And if you heard Karen and I talk about Fire in the Mountain, we walked 75% of that race, you know what I mean? And so, and we were well under the cutoff. Okay. And it was 5,000 feet of elevation. So if you had that same race and it's dead flat, like if it's a rail trail or if it's under 1,000 feet of elevation, anyone can do it. But it comes back to what I would like to know from you is what your expectations of it are, and if you're going to try to run it, and if you're trying for certain things. And that's where when I say I wouldn't want it, I'm not saying that you can't do it, but that's where in my mind, and John, I'm going to pick on you for a minute here. John, why Ironman? Why, John? Why? There was several shows on just that topic.
Oh yeah.
And that's
oh yeah.
when you get into triathlon, you go sprint, you go Olympic, you go half, you go full. Why? That's what you do. You progress through the distances, and you got to check them off. You know, it's a list. But that's where, and I'm not saying that full iron is not hard. It obviously is. It's very, very hard and time consuming and hard on your body. But, you know, to go marathon or beyond distance and do it safely, you know, and that's why, like, in years past, I've been very fortunate, knock on wood as I say it, I have not had any major injuries. Okay. And I felt like this year was a great year for me to get into to do my first ultra because of the base, the 9 months of marathon training, road running, and so forth that I had done. I just don't want to see anybody, like you say, skip the marathon, jump straight into it, you know, going from a 10K half marathon into an ultra. And, you know, if your ligaments and tendons and all that, and John, you can go with I'm going to say physiology and the science behind it, you know, the longer of a build you have. Do you need a 10-year build, Pete? No, you don't need a 10-year build, but you probably want to have at least, I'm going to just say 18 months of solid running, maybe 24 months of a solid running base under you before you really try to lengthen that out, especially if you're going to try to run it. Now, if you're going to go out and run walk it, you know, at a, let's just even say a 4-minute walk, a 1-minute run, I'm making that up. Okay. You're fine. You can go do it tomorrow. But if you're going to try to do like even like a 1-in-1, I think you want to have a longer base build just to make sure that everything is as strengthened as it should be to go into that.
Yeah. So, I mean, along those lines, I mean, I've been running consistently for about 18 months. So by the time this comes around, you know, there'd be another, whatever that is, 10 more months under me in terms of base.
Sure,
so
over 2 years.
Yeah. So I think I'm okay from that perspective. So what I'm looking at are the Badger trail races. This would be the first time it's put on by 10 Junk Miles Racing. And there's distances actually all the way from half marathon up to 100 miles. And the half marathon and marathon distances have really generous cutoffs, really generous. Mm-hmm. So does the 50K, the 100K, and the 100 mile. The 50 mile is the anomaly. So to walk just real quick, the 100 mile, for anybody that's looking for trail races, I mean, it might fit into what they're trying to do. It's the first weekend in August in Southwest Wisconsin. So the 100 miles has a 36-hour cutoff. The 100K has a 33-hour cutoff. The 50K has 11-hour cutoff. The 50 mile, 12-hour cutoff. So I would have to run the majority of the 50 mile. So kind of my thought process here, and you guys can tell me, you know, what you think. I really didn't think going into my first ultra that I should be trying to run the whole thing. And it is mostly rail trail. It's flat. Maybe a little bit of rolling hill, but not a ton. So 50 miles though, I mean, I basically have to go at 4 miles an hour, which for me, I can't walk that fast consistently. I'm just not anymore, not at my age. So I would have to run probably in terms of ratio, I'd probably have to be about, I don't know, maybe 2 to 1, 3 to 1. I usually only walk about 30 seconds, but.
Okay. You're talking about a 15-minute mile.
Right.
So
14:24.
Okay. So you can get to a 15-minute use and run walk. There's a few ratios that'll get you there. 30 second, 45 seconds should get you there too. I'm normally walking at least a minute, so I'm usually doing a 1-1, and that gets me to around 15:30.
Okay.
You know, so you know, and you have to be consistent. As you said, my walk sucks. I'm a very slow walker, and that's part of the issue. When I run, I can run. When I'm running like at a 11, 12-minute mile. But when I'm walking, it's dropping to like a 17.
Right.
And so my ratios are way off. Right.
So my other piece of that too is, and this is what I don't know yet, having never done an ultra, I don't know the amount of time that you need to or will have to spend in any aid station. So you've got to get in and out of those aid stations too. And I'm sure that you have to do that just to even check in, would be my assumption, for timing and stuff, so that nobody's cutting courses or whatever happens with people's cheating. So, really you're running faster than 14:24. That's the overall pace, including any breaks. So what does that mean? Do I have to be a 12-minute? A 13-minute?
Yeah, it depends on how many aid stations are there. Do you know yet, or
there's every 5 to 7 miles, they said.
Oh, that's a lot. So you don't need to carry as much, probably. So that so I mean, when you go into an aid station, the basic thing, like you said, check in, get something to eat, get something to drink, and get out.
Right.
Where I would run into problems is that if I sat down, I'd be done.
Right.
So I can't sit down, but.
Yeah, I didn't care. Neither Karen nor I sat down. I can't say that other people didn't, but I was just refilling my bladder, and the aid station volunteers were super great. Like, you're coming in, they were grabbing the water and helping fill it. You're grabbing a couple handfuls of food. We only spent maybe two minutes, maybe 3 minutes total at each aid station, if that, at most. But there were people that were spending 5-10 minutes at them, and that's something that you got to walk a lot for your plan. And that's where Pete, I'm just going to say here, like, at that, going back to this 14:24 average pace, just saying that as an average, it's flat. When I say it this way, if you can walk a 16 or a 17, and you can run an 11, I think you could do it. That's it. If you don't think you can make it, do the 50K then, because that's 20 some miles less, or it's 15 or however many miles, 17 miles less. But if you get out there, when I say I think you can do it, the 50 miler, if that's in your, because. And I'm going to just expand it. Forget 30 seconds, 45 seconds as you're doing it. Run a mile at your 11-minute pace, or 10, or whatever you're at, okay? And then walk a mile at your 16. If you're at an 11, you're 3 minutes under that. So you can, if you're walking at under a 17, it's still going to average out for you. And I bet that you would end up not even walking as much as you think you would, but that's where it's part of your plan. You should do it, especially earlier on, because then you're going to make that up more on the backside. But, instead of going out and doing your consistent pace, go out and do a 6-miler and run one, and then walk one, run one, walk one. You repeat that 3 or 4 times, do 6-8 miles, and see where you end up coming in at. I bet you're going to be very surprised with how good of a result you're going to get.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 other factors in there. One of them's the heat, right? I mean, this is August, so it's going to be warm. It could be really, really hot. And I don't do great in the heat overall. Well, I can't say that. I don't do well in the combination of what we get in the Midwest, which is high dew point and heat and sun. So when I have that unholy trinity, it's not good for me. So that's weighing on me a little bit. The other part of it, I agree with your thought process, Rob. I could do it. The question is, do I want to do it?
That's something that only you can answer.
Yeah,
right.
That's on you. Yeah.
Well, but I think it's an important one in this case, because I would have to really tax myself to get through that. Versus the 50K, I think I could enjoy. I might even be able to get back out there and help some other people, get in. I could be a cheerleader. So, I mean, in my head, it was actually oddly either a 50K or the 100K that was in my mind, because 33 hours for the 100K, I mean, it's a very, very long way. Totally get that. But it's a super generous cutoff at 33 hours. So that was, those are the factors that were really weighing in. I guess in the end, for my first ultra, I honestly don't want to go in with any fear of failure. And at that 50 mile, I have a fear of failure, just with all the factors coming into play. So that's I think where, for me, that might be something like the following year that I'd want to tackle, because I'd have something, another year under my belt of running, building up distances, and be able to look at those different strategies. I think that that's kind of race that would be interesting for somebody exactly like you, Rob, versus, John. I think, I'm probably more towards you in terms of, the speed category. And I would really, I think we would be really pushing to get through that. Now, I am getting faster all the time, and I am doing speed work and tempo work, and that's not going to stop even after the marathon. That won't stop, because I think it's key, along with the zone 2 kind of training, easy runs, to building up long-term fitness. But that's where I'm nervous. I want to enjoy the experience. If I go out there and I bonk, that's not going to be fun. And that's kind of what I want to get it more into trails, is more about fun. The 50 miler at 12 hours seems to me more road racing mentality, in terms of I got to get moving.
Yeah. Well, I think this is going to take a lot more than just one episode to talk through. We are getting a little over the time, and I want to give Rob a chance to come in and kind of wrap up what he needs to wrap up, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, Rob.
You're right with that,
Okay.
Pete. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, absolutely.
And so John had alluded to it a little bit earlier, and part of some of the discussions that I wasn't joining in on here today, and that is part of it is, I'll jump straight to the conclusion and then the raisins here, and that is, I'm going to be stepping away from the show for a while. When I say I don't know what that is, whether that's going to be 2 months, whether that's going to be 6 months, and that's like, as these guys are very cordial, as I'm sitting here, I actually just sent a message and said, hey guys, I kind of got to get off here. My wife's a little sick. Connor's apparently upstairs crying, and I was just trying to, get through as much as I could here, but he isn't getting any better. Family keeps coming up, but also, like I said, at work, one of the things is, and I don't talk, much, but I work for State Farm Insurance. One of the other things we do is financial services and planning. And, I currently have my Series 6 and my Series 63 licensing, but I was also going for FSCP designation, and also now I'm going to be taking the Series 65. And so I have a lot of stuff, at work, and there's a lot less free time that I'm going to have coming up. And that's basically the next 3-4 months of my time is going to be spent studying all that, which is why, way back when, John had made the comment, or you've heard him say a few times here about, like, I've been a good client, I've been a good coaching, whatever, when we're talking about what's happening for next year, I literally have nothing on my calendar. And it's the weirdest, scariest thing for me, because the first time in a decade that I have nothing. I have no races. I have no entries. I have nothing bought, booked, planned, only because I don't know how long it's going to take me to get through some of this stuff. Work and family always comes first. So, I've got longer work days that are coming up that lead into, I come home at 5-6 o'clock at night. I only got 2-3 hours with him, little guy, before he goes to bed. So I'm trying to make the most of that. So I don't know if 2019, I know it's going to be some sort of exercise, but I don't know if it's going to be running. I don't know if it's going to be swimming. I don't know if it's going to be triathlon. The best I might get might be an hour bike ride with Connor in the basket on the back, or, pushing him in the jogging stroller and going for a walk with the wife. So it's a really hard, weird place to be, saying I'm going in the next year, not knowing anything. But also, a lot of the show has been about, the training, the progression, what we're going through. And I honestly don't know if I'm going to have any progression or regression next year. At this point, I just, too many question marks in the air to really put anything out there. So I hope I've said that well enough, and so everybody knows what's going on. I only ever really talk training, and like I said, goods and the bads of the training, but not really much ever going into the personal or work life. And that's a lot of demands coming up on me here soon. So including now.
Yeah, right. So just to put a cap on that, I guess, is you are always going to be the co-host. So as soon as you're done, when you need to come back, you come back. There's going to be a spot for you. So, and I want you to, when you can, I want you to come on and check in.
Yeah.
So if we can do that, even if we want to do
5-10 minutes in a day, I plan to definitely do that. But also, it's gonna have to be. I don't want to say something epic. I'm sorry. And this is something I wanted to say a few shows ago, and I forgot. Ryan and I were joking about the Ultra, and Pete, and this is something I guess if you and John get to talking again. It's only stupid until you finish, and then it's epic.
Right,
So
right,
I don't want to just come on with, hey guys, it's Rob. I rode 2 miles on the bicycle today. I want to like more than amazing, the best ride ever.
Well, I think, but as you said, if you can jump on and record 5-10 minutes, I'll stick it in.
Yeah.
So everybody knows the show's not going to stop.
Yeah.
I don't want this to sound wrong, but you weren't the first co-host,
Nope.
So the show's going to keep going, and I'll figure it out. And the original intent when Rob came on was to do guest co-hosts every week.
Yeah.
And Rob's portions were so good that we just, he just stayed on because it just worked well. I thought we worked well together. Plus he was a client, so it kind of gave us that area to talk about as well. So maybe go back to that. I'll see what works, and we'll go forward. And then hopefully at some point Rob comes back on. The hard part is that I kind of alluded to it earlier. Rob's in a different place in his life than I am.
Yeah.
So he's where I was 22 years ago. 22 years ago, I probably couldn't have done this either. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. You've got, how did I say it, Rob, the other day? I said, you're winding up and I'm winding down.
That's exactly how you said it. Yep.
So we're different spots. So, and it's fine. You've got to take care of your family. You've got to take care of what's going on in your life, and then once that's taken care of, then you can revisit coming back. I would caution, just because we were talking about, don't get too relaxed, and become 300 pounds again.
Right.
Watch it, and we will be watching. So
that is the biggest fear and the biggest thing that for accountability, I will follow up with that. So
yeah, I know what your fear is, because I would have the same fear. I'm going to be 300 pounds again. So just as long as you have that in your in your head, don't get too far off the track. Do what you can. You've got a son. He's going to be growing up. Go riding with him, go walking with him, go running with him eventually. You got a good spot.
Right.
So, all right, man. Pete, anything else to add?
Gentlemen, I appreciate it. And if you guys want to keep talking, feel free, but I do guts to go.
All right, Rob. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, gentlemen. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Take care.
We'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long show.
Yeah. I mean, I just looked down at the time and said, wow, this is about the longest show we've done in a while.
There you go.
But I do appreciate you coming on, helping us out here. Maybe you can do one of the guest hosting spots.
That'd be great. I would enjoy it.
So you can add, don't you do another one other than Fatman Chronicles?
I do a daily quick cast. It's like a minute and a half.
I thought you did. I've looked for it. I can't find it.
Yeah, it's called Be Better Today.
Yeah.
It's on iTunes. It's on all the platforms.
I've looked for it. I cannot find it. I'm going to look for it again.
Yeah, I'll post an episode.
Okay.
And that way you'll be.
Yeah. Throw it into the group so we can see it.
Yeah. So it's just I'm going to do it through the end of the year. It's just a minute and a half. I find a quote. I say a few things about it and end up. Really, it's selfish because I just want to keep myself positive and motivated.
You know what? I should do that too. But I told you I need to come up with like a thing like Be Better Today.
Yeah.
The one I've been using, off and on is Fly Courageous, and never really caught on. But maybe I need to just start using it again.
There you go.
Because it means something to me.
Well, and that's all it needs to, right? I mean,
right.
And if it resonates with people, it's just slowly and surely will take hold.
Hopefully so. So all right. So we will post this. You know where to find us at teamE4E on all the platforms and the Facebook groups. Rob over there is at Fatman Chronicles, the blog. Well, Fatman, the blog is not that.
Yeah, it's fatmanchronicles.com.
.com, okay. And then the show Fatman Chronicles on all your favorite podcasting apps. And Be Better Today on our podcasting apps as well, right?
Yeah.
Take a look. If you haven't heard his show, take a listen to it. He does it with his wife, and she's a pip. I'll say it like that.
She's worth listening to.
She's worth listening to. Just for her views from the couch.
There you go.
Worth listening to. There you go. See, you can tell her that I said something positive about views from the couch.
She'll love it.
She'll love it. Like I'm mad. All right, man. So, and until next time we talk, we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.
Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.